Hi friends, I'm back with another segment of the Giggler treatment. Oh, I'm so excited to read this story to you. It is so fun, by Roddy Doyle. Let's get started. Chapter 6, which should probably be called Chapter 5, is another of these chapters where nothing much happens except for one very exciting thing at the end. More questions like this one. Who are the Gigglers? Good question. The Gigglers look after children, and they do it very well, but they do it so quietly that hardly anyone has ever seen them. How do they look after the children? Good question. They follow them everywhere. To school, to the shops, to the park, and back home again, upstairs, into the toilet, all over the place. Everywhere the children go, the Gigglers are always near, always looking after them. Wow! Sort of like fairies too. What do they look like? Good question. Only a few people have ever seen the Gigglers, and they never tell anyone else about them. So it's hard to tell what the Gigglers look like. They are baby-sized and furry. Furry? Their fur changes color as they move. Like a chameleon? Yes, like a chameleon. If they are near a white wall, they become white. If they are in a tree, they become green and brown. If they are near a car, well, it depends on the color of the car, but they're not very good at being purple. I'm wearing purple right now. So they try not to go too near to purple cars. Why do they follow the children? I predict to protect children. Another good question. They follow the children to make sure that adults are being fair to them. Parents, teachers, and aunties, shopkeepers, all adults. If they are mean to the children, they get the Giggler treatment. If they are mean to the children, they get the Giggler treatment. Ooh. If they send a child to bed without their supper, or if they frighten a child, they get the Giggler treatment. If they are dishonest to a child, if, say, they give a child fish and say it's chicken, or if they ever fart and then blame the child for it, they get the Giggler treatment. If they are ever rude to a child or make them wear clothes that they hate, they get the Giggler treatment. Ooh. What is the Giggler treatment? Poo on the shoe. What happens then? The adults keep getting the treatment every day, sometimes twice or 3 times a day, until they stop being mean to the child. Have the Gigglers always done this? Yes! Since the beginning of time, the Gigglers have always been there. Since the first dog did its first poo. Since the first caveman grunted at his first cave child. He stomped out of the cave straight onto a huge lump of prehistoric poo. The Roman Emperor Nero hated children. He ordered his guards to catch all children and feed them to the lions. Then he stood on a dollop of lion poo. There were more lions than dogs in ancient Rome. So, it wasn't dog poo then. Many years later, a saint called Patrick was busy driving all the snakes out of Ireland. A little boy called Elvis O'Leary, who loved snakes, asked Patrick to stop, but Patrick pushed him out of his way and walked straight onto a little hill of hot poo that only seconds before had been inside an Irish wolfhound called Bran. St. Patrick got rid of the snakes, but he never got rid of the smell. 2 minutes after the Titanic hit the iceberg, a woman on the deck shouted, "Quick, quick! The children will drown!" "Good," said a man. "There will be more room in the lifeboats." And he stepped onto a hill of the slimiest green dog poo and slid off the deck straight into the sea. "Oh, Mammy," he roared, "I forgot me water wings." So you see, the Gigglers have been doing this work for thousands of years. All this time, they've been giving the treatment to men and women who are mean to children. How is Mr. Mac mean to his children? Good question. And the answer is coming up soon. But now we'll go on to the next chapter. What about the very exciting thing at the end of this chapter? Oh, yes, I forgot. While I was telling you all about the Gigglers, a woman who was walking in a park in Bombay nearly stood on a snail. That wasn't exciting. Well, the snail thought it was. So, boys and girls, what do you think of Gigglers? Do you kind of wish there were Gigglers around all the time? Roddy Doyle, what a story you have woven for the fun and enjoyment of families. All right, back to the story. Chapter 7, which should probably be called Chapter 5? Oh, I think, but let's just call it, I don't know what chapter it's supposed to be called. The Gigglers waited. The shoe was now exactly 12 inches and a little bit from the poo. "Any second now," whispered the biggest Giggler. They waited for the thop, 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 Mr. Mac hopping on one foot and trying not to fall over. They waited for the little thump, Mr. Mac leaning against the wall, only 3 inches of brick and cement away from the Gigglers' noses. The biggest Giggler looked over the wall and ducked back down again. 10 inches, she said. "Cod?" said the seagull. "Yuck!" The middle-sized Giggler crammed her other hand and one of her feet into her mouth. Sorry, I can't do that. To stop the giggles from escaping, she fell off the bike, but she made no noise because she landed on soft, long grass. "Get off," said the grass. No, it didn't. I'm only messing. But the time has come to explain why the Gigglers were doing this to Mr. Mac. Chapter 8, which should probably be called Chapter, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, stop messing and get on with the story, is probably what you're saying. The day before Mr. Mac's foot headed straight for the poo, just before it got too dark to play outside, the Mac brothers, Jimmy and Robbie, broke the kitchen window. They were playing football with a burst ball when it happened. Robbie Mac gave the ball a whack with his big toe. It bounced off Jimmy Mac's head, flew at the window, and cracked the glass. "Ouch!" said Robbie. "Me too!" "Ouch!" said Jimmy. "Me head!" "Wah!" said Mr. Mac. "Me window!" He was upstairs when he heard the noise. He was in the bathroom putting a plaster on his finger. That's a Band-Aid. He cut his finger putting new glass into the kitchen window just 5 minutes before the ball cracked it. He ran downstairs to the kitchen and saw the broken window, so he kept running out to the garden. "Who did that?" he shouted. "Not us," said Robbie. "The ball did it." "I only just fixed it," said Mr. Mac. "It's not fair." Mr. Mac had a very hard day. That's 7 times I've had to fix that window, he said, in 7 days. He looked at Robbie and Jimmy. Boys, 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 he said. How many times am I going to have to fix it? 8? Robbie wasn't being smart or cheeky when he said that. He was giving Mr. Mac the correct answer. The window had been broken 7 times, and now he was going to have to fix it one more time. 7 and 1 made 8. So Robbie was right. But poor Mr. Mac had a very hard day. He had spent all day testing cream crackers, and they were very, very boring. In fact, Mr. Mac didn't think that they were really biscuits at all. They were always perfectly boringly square, and they tasted like nothing except what they were: boring old cream crackers. And poor Mr. Mac had been measuring and eating them all day. He was stuffed to the tonsils with cream crackers. He knew he'd dream about cream crackers tonight. He always had the same cream cracker dream after a day of measuring and eating cream crackers. It wasn't a dream about killer ninja cream crackers or beautiful round-eyed cream crackers or anything interesting like that. No chance. In this dream, Mr. Mac was always surrounded by talking cream crackers, hundreds of them, all saying the most boring things ever. Babies are smaller than adults. Isn't that interesting? Toilet paper is usually white, but not always. Isn't that interesting? A car has 4 wheels, but a bike has only 2. Isn't that interesting? All night, the talking cream crackers would be yapping at him. I guess that's what they were saying. Rather irritating and boring, don't you think? That was another reason why Mr. Mac loved fig rolls. They never talked when he went to sleep. He wasn't looking forward to bedtime, even though he was very tired. He could already hear the cream crackers mumbling away in his brain. Some pajamas have stripes and some don't have any stripes at all. Isn't that interesting? But that wasn't the worst part of the day. Something strange had happened to Mr. Mac at lunchtime. A vulture had swooped down from a tree and robbed his sandwiches. And before he had time to get over the shock, the vulture came back and robbed his flask. Then he had to fix the broken kitchen window for the 7th time in 7 days, and he'd cut his finger doing it. He was hungry and tired, and his finger was sore, and the cream crackers were already yapping at him. If you put your feet in water, they get wet. Isn't that interesting? The vulture had stuck his tongue out at him as he flew away with the flask. The flask had been full of chicken soup, Mr. Mac's all-time favorite, and now he thought his children were being cheeky. Mr. Mac had had enough. Go up to your room, he told Robbie and Jimmy. But I'm hungry, said Jimmy. I don't care, said Mr. Mac. Go up to your room. And that was why the next morning the Pooh was waiting for Mr. Mac. What Mr. Mac didn't know, and what nobody else knew, was that the Gigglers were listening to him. They were in the cupboard under the stairs. They looked at one another and nodded. The treatment? Said the smallest very quietly. The treatment, said the biggest. Pooh, said the smallest. Pooh, said the biggest. Next chapter something. Back at the station, the biggest Giggler ducked back down. How much now? 8 inches. And the middle-sized Giggler fell off the bike again.